Welcome to World Wrap, your global snapshot for Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Here's what's happening around the world. Ceasefire talks for Ukraine see a potential breakthrough after a high-profile call. South Asia monitors a fragile truce as global powers urge dialogue. And Western governments shift their position on Israel's war in Gaza. These stories and more, coming right up. In South Asia, a cautious calm prevails between India and Pakistan following the intense military escalation earlier this month. While the extended ceasefire along the line of control in Kashmir has largely held, diplomatic efforts continue behind the scenes to prevent further flare-ups. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who spoke with both Indian and Pakistani officials last week urging restraint, reiterated Beijing's support for dialogue. In India, the government is focused on economic indicators, with April's industrial production and retail sales figures being closely watched for signs of momentum. The Reserve Bank of India also continues to monitor inflation. Security reviews in Jammu and Kashmir remain ongoing. Across Southeast Asia, ASEAN nations are collectively addressing regional security challenges and economic cooperation. The Philippines this week continued to advocate for an ASEAN-wide visa system to significantly boost tourism within the bloc, and from international visitors. In Indonesia, authorities are investigating the widespread food poisoning incident linked to a free meal program in Bogor, which led to a local health emergency declaration. The country is also pushing ahead with its ambitions to become a key player in the electric vehicle battery supply chain. In East Asia, Japan's focus on quantum technology as a new industrial pillar, announced last week by Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, is gaining traction with new government support for startups and research initiatives. This comes as South Korea showcases its advanced robotics capabilities at the ICRA 2025 conference in Atlanta, with companies like Rainbow Robotics unveiling next-generation humanoid robots. Both nations are also closely monitoring the impact of global trade dynamics, including the US-China tariff truce. Watch for further diplomatic engagement regarding the India-Pakistan situation and developments from ASEAN economic policy discussions. In China, economic performance remains a key focus. Major Chinese banks cut deposit rates on Tuesday in a coordinated effort to preserve shrinking profit margins and encourage consumer spending and investment, as the economy grapples with a property sector crisis and weaker domestic demand. This follows mixed economic data for April, with industrial production exceeding expectations but retail sales figures falling short. On the international front, China continues to evaluate the implications of the 90-day U.S. tariff reduction agreement reached in Geneva last weekend, while also strengthening ties with other regions, as seen with the recent China-CELAC forum aimed at deepening cooperation with Latin American and Caribbean states. Across Africa, leaders and experts are increasingly focused on leveraging digital transformation for economic growth and sustainable development. Following the WSIS Plus 20 Africa Regional Review in Benin and the Africa Bank 4.0 Summit in Kenya last week, discussions continue on improving digital infrastructure, fostering fintech innovation, and bridging the digital divide. In South Africa, the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources provided a briefing yesterday on the country's critical mineral strategy and the new Mineral Resources Development Bill, aimed at responsibly developing its rich mineral wealth. South African Deputy President Paul Mashatile is currently on a working visit to France, focusing on strengthening bilateral ties. In Australia, the Reserve Bank of Australia's monetary policy remains a central topic, with markets closely watching for signals on future interest rate moves in light of recent inflation data and global economic trends. The Australian share market saw a mixed start to the week, influenced by the US-China trade truce and commodity price fluctuations. The country continues to push its renewable energy agenda, with significant investments in solar and battery storage projects, such as Octopus Australia's recently approved 300-megawatt solar plus storage site in New South Wales. In New Zealand, public and political debate continues around proposed legislation to ban social media access for children under 16. The humanitarian situation in Gaza remains catastrophic, with the UN and numerous international aid agencies issuing stark warnings about the imminent risk of famine and the collapse of the healthcare system due to Israel's ongoing military operations and severe restrictions on aid delivery. Israel's war cabinet approved plans last week for an expanded offensive, drawing widespread international condemnation. Following U.S. President Donald Trump's recent tour of the region, which included stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, and saw the announcement of major economic and defense deals, diplomatic efforts are reportedly ongoing to secure a more lasting ceasefire in Gaza and prevent a wider regional conflagration. The Arab League, at its recent summit, called for significant international funding to rebuild Gaza. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government continues its efforts to reset trade and defense relations with the European Union, following a summit in London on Monday. Key areas of discussion include reducing trade friction for food and agricultural products and potential UK participation in EU programs. Across the EU, focus remains on implementing the AI Act and other digital regulations, alongside strategies for energy security and addressing global trade challenges. The bloc is also reportedly preparing a 17th sanctions package against Russia. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and his government have suspended trade talks with Israel and imposed sanctions on Israeli settlers, citing Israel's military escalation in Gaza as morally unjustifiable. The US and other Western allies, including Canada and France, have also warned Israel of potential sanctions and urged an end to the renewed offensive, signaling a shift from earlier unconditional support. The war in Ukraine saw a potentially significant development yesterday. US President Donald Trump announced that after a lengthy phone call he initiated with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Moscow and Kiev would immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire. President Putin reportedly informed Trump that Russia is ready to work on a memorandum for a possible future peace accord. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, while reiterating Ukraine's desire for peace, stressed that Russia must first demonstrate genuine readiness for meaningful engagement and respect Ukraine's sovereignty. This follows a weekend of intense fighting in eastern Ukraine. Across Latin America, the economic climate and international partnerships are key themes. The recent China CELAC Forum in Beijing highlighted China's growing engagement with the region, focusing on expanding trade, investment, and cooperation in technology and infrastructure. In Brazil, the government is preparing to roll out new measures to support its domestic manufacturing sector, while also moving forward with plans to host the 2027 FIFA Women's World Cup. Argentina's President Javier Milei's administration continues to implement sweeping economic austerity measures, which have seen some initial positive market reactions regarding reduced sovereign risk, but also face significant social challenges and high inflation. Mexico's presidential election campaigns are intensifying, with security and economic policy at the forefront. Countries like Chile and Colombia are managing their economies amidst fluctuating global commodity prices and domestic policy debates. In culture, the Cannes Film Festival continues in France, with film premieres and industry discussions drawing global attention. Today, May 21st, also marks World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, promoting understanding and cooperation among cultures. In sports, the finals of major European football leagues are approaching, with intense competition for titles and continental qualifications. In tech, the Pint of Science Festival concluded this week, having successfully brought scientists to pubs and cafes in numerous countries to share their latest research with the public, covering a vast array of fascinating topics. That's World Wrap for Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Like and follow us for more daily updates from around the globe. See you tomorrow.